Hello viewers, welcome back to another video. Today we're back in Starfield and we're doing another ship tour. This particular ship I call the Shadow of Ash, and it's my medium to heavy cargo ship. It consists of 3 different decks, the lowest deck being a 2x2, the mid deck being a 2x2, and the upper deck being a 2x1. We'll go into the ship builder and we'll take a look at some of its features. You could probably build the entire ship on Neon because the Teo headquarters are there, and there's also an Eklund Stroud facility there for you to get the few parts that it uses. There may be 1 or 2 pieces that you would have to travel to New Atlantis for, but I'm not entirely positive about that. So starting off with it, on the lower deck, I've got a pair of 2x1 modules here. The Teo All-in-One and the Teo Control Station. Both of these are the mid deck, so they don't have the curved edges on the upper or bottom edges of them. Then going to the mid deck, I've got the Teo 2x2 all-in-one berth. That is probably one of the nicer layouts for the all-in-ones that I've seen. And I'll show you why once we get around to the ship tour. And then the upper deck is the Teo Armory. That one has a single bed or a single cell brig in it, as well as some racks for weapons and stuff like that. Uses the Teo cockpit, so it's got good visibility, and the most of the structural pieces on here are the Teos. We've got the Teo landing gear, the braking engines, more landing gear, and then we've gone with these engines here, the Nova 1030s. I wanted to try to build a ship when I built this thing that it seemed to fit together well, and a lot of the other ones you've got like weird little quirks about them, where the engines don't quite fit, or the fairings don't really fit together, stuff like that. So that's why I went with this particular layout. And I'll pull a couple of pieces off for a look inside the structure of it. Okay, so here you've got the lower deck, which is this would be the starboard port side. So this is the control hab or control room. You could put a 2x2 like cargo hall if you weren't concerned about having extra crew stations, or possibly a 2x2 mess hall if that's something that you're into. Behind that we've got a cargo hold, and right on top of that we've got our reactor. I went with B class on that because that's what was required to use these engines, and I've got a mixture of A and B class components in here. For instance, the grav drive is B class. I've got some of these engines are A class, and then I've got B class shields, B class weapons. Okay, now I've also got, for the upper deck to kind of smooth things over, I've put these 2 Nova Galactic fairings, and I like the longer fairing that was on here. It does kind of block some of your upper windows on the cockpit, but it seems to really fit in well with the look of the ship. And on the other side we've got these Stroud Eklund structural pieces, just to sort of give it a little bit nicer shape to it. In here, behind the 2x2 all-in-one, I've got my fuel tanks, and I've got my shielded cargo hold, and mounted on the other side of the landing gear here, I've got my scan jammer. So I built this ship when I was starting to do the Crimson Fleet quest, and I wanted something that was maybe a little bit more piratey looking than my other ships. It's got a total capacity of 3,815 cargo. That consists of 3 of these galleon cargo holds. You could bump that up by another 950, but you take a hit to your maneuverability, and that's only 60 right now. It still does fairly well in combat. 60 sounds low, but it's not actually too bad. So I've got one of those Galleon cargo holds on the other side, I've got two of them on this side, and then I've got another cargo hold buried underneath here for another 435, 320 in the cockpit, and 190 for this one here, which gives us a total of 3815. And when you start adding in the payload skill, it goes up significantly. I think I've got level 1 or 2 of the payload, and I've got 49, I want to say 4950 or something like that is my cargo capacity. I went with black and gold because I thought it was a nice color contrast. I wanted to have a darker ship while most of mine are reasonably light. You know, some of them are white, stuff like that, or gray or whatever. And I tried black and red. It didn't really seem to fit too well. But the black and gold really seems to go together well. So I like that. Wanted to go with a relatively low profile shield on there. And of course the Docker up on the top. I've mainly got the Helion beams, which do equal shield and hull damage. But I've also added the electromagnetic damage for when I want to board ships. There's no missile launcher on it, and I don't really feel too bad about that. Theoretically, the top speed is 140, but perhaps due to the level that I'm at and the fact that I've got, I think it's level 1 of the engine skill, it actually tops out at around 170 if I remember right. And it's not due to these engines because the 3030s are not the ones that are supposed to give you 180 for speed. That's the 3015s. So my experience is what it says here is not actually what your top speed is going to be. Anyways, that's what the outside of the ship looks like. Let's go take a look at it on the landing pad, and then we'll do an interior tour. Okay, so here we are. You can see that it's a relatively large ship. Underneath the cockpit, I've got the Teo braking engines. This is the, I want to say Teo landing bay, which is a horizontal landing bay as opposed to the vertical one where you need the ladders. We've got the braking engines. We've got our 4 landing gears on it. These are both the cargo holds, upper and lower. The look from the back doesn't look too bad. And initially I started off with this without the third deck on there, and I found it just looked a little bit too flat. And it was a little too boring, so I stuck that extra module up on the top there. I wanted it to be sort of offset, and I think it came out with a pretty decent profile to it. And then on this side, you've got your just your structural unit to give it the same shape. It would be possible without affecting the line too much to go with the Stroud-Eklund side docker as well, if that's something that you wanted to do. But then you'd have to figure out, well, what do I want to do with this lower deck here? Do you just put a couple of the Teo caps on it, or do you put something else underneath there? And I decided I like the look of this better. Now entering in here, we're in the Teo all-in-one berth, and I've got to try to figure out whether I can force that entry to the front of the front of the module rather than the rear, because when the crossover door is in the rear, you lose your bathroom. There is still one on the ship. If I was to swap positions of these two modules, then I would lose one of these bunks. And I would get the bathroom back, but I'd lose a bunk in exchange. So the ideal solution would be if I could force the doorway to the front. I don't know if it's possible to do that by putting in a like a 1x1 module and then removing it again. In theory, I think you can force a module, like if I just deleted this module and chose the attachment point that I wanted it to do the crossover, that might allow me to do it, but then of course I'd have to repaint it. Now, I've also tried bringing the armory down here and putting it in this position and putting this all-in-one up on the top deck, but the problem with that is that for some reason it glitches this ladder. It will appear to make this opening closed. I can still climb up with the ladder and go through the opening, but I can't jump up and I can't jump down. So that was kind of a problem for me. and I ended up going back to the current setup. Now, the reason that I like this particular all-in-one module, the 2x2, is that it gives you two things you don't get in the other ones. First off, it gives you an enclosed bedroom with a door on it, which I thought was kind of a neat feature for these living quarters. And it also gives you a bathroom with a door, and it gives you like an enclosed galley area. And this is, of course, functional. You can make your food in here. It's a little tricky to find the hotspot on here. I'm always looking for it, but there is definitely a, there we go, a galley hotspot. And if I cleared all this crap off of the counter,
Did you need something?
it would probably be a lot easier to find. Yeah, see how small it is, and I'm not pointing anywhere near at it. But you can prep food and stuff like that if that's one of the things that you do for crafting for your game.
Yes?
Then in the
Good day,
rear here,
Captain.
we've got our ladder up to the third deck. And as I said, this is an armory. We've got some guns here, and we've got our single brig cell, which gives a couple more beds for the crew to stay in, assuming that you'll just leave the door open.
Hey there. Glad to see you again.
I've never seen them doing aerobics or any of that kind of stuff on the ship. That's kind of unusual. Standard Teo cockpit, good visibility. You do lose a little bit of your overhead visibility, but how often are you going to be looking up through these windows? So I don't really consider that too much of a problem, and I really like what the Nova Galactic fairing does for the appearance of it. I tried the shorter one, and it just I didn't like it very much. And I also tried using one of the Teo fairings, the structural fairings, and I didn't really like that. So we'll take off, we'll do a little bit of a fly around, and I'll show you some pictures of it in
Escape
space.
trajectory plotted. Achieving orbit now.
So as you can see, I've only got level, I believe it's 1 of the engine skill, but I am getting considerably better than what I was looking for or expecting from Class B engines, where it tells me my theoretical maximum is 140. Boost speed, I believe, is around 650. Yep, that's about right. And maneuverability, even at maximum throttle, isn't terrible. It does pull your speed down when you do turning, but then it'll drop back up to maximum. So as you turn, it'll pull you down to your half speed. It's not great, but it's adequate enough for combat. And I tend to use the thruster mode quite a bit when I'm in combat anyways. I'll swing around, I'll fire at ships that are coming behind me, and then release that and actually start to track on. I'm not terribly inclined to start a fight with with any of the civilian ships here. So that's the ship. Let's go to external view. Is photo mode, right stick. So it's not spectacular in terms of the layout. As I said, I believe you can get everything in neon because it's primarily Teo parts. These are the only 2 Stroud Eklund pieces on it. The fairings here to give a little bit of shape to it, and the only other oddball piece that I've got is this Nova Galactic fairing on the front, which is also one of my weapon holders. and these two Nova Galactic fairings on the side here. The other structural pieces are Teo for on top of the rear engine, underneath both of the rear engines. So yeah, that's basically a look at this particular ship. Hopefully it's given you some ideas for your own ship builds. A fairly basic looking ship. You know, it's essentially just like a big square with some rounded corners on it. But I like it. It's got a decent amount of cargo space. And on the subject of that, if you're curious what the payload skill does for you, 4959 is my total cargo capacity after the payload skill, 3815 without the skill, and that's with level... Oh, that's with level 3, so I get 30% more capacity. So yeah, it does add up quite a bit, especially when you start with the larger numbers. It'll pump it up considerably. Anyways, that's the ship we're looking at today. Thanks for watching this video, and if you found it interesting, come back for the next one.